Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Today is Sunday, October 15th, and it's a very sad time in the world. Very sad. We have we have the brutality and the violence in the Middle East to speak of. We also lost a well-known and popular musician, Ibo Cooper. We also witnessed the arrest of Mr. Paul Well, baby mother, for murder. No, it's just a terrible time. I want to welcome everyone to Waterhouse Vibes. Rupi, Waterhouse Vibes is about the community. That's what we're about, community in Jamaica. And we try to put together a group of individuals who can comment on what's happening in Jamaica. With me today, I have Mr. Rattigan, Will Rattigan. Many of you know him as a fierce advocate for the Jamaican people. We have Las Crawford, another advocate. Mr. Patrick McCarthy, also an advocate. And of course, John Horton. Today we have a special guest, Brother Rupert Walters. Brother Rupert is a man who's in the trench for a long time. And on a day like this, I think it's only fitting that we have Brother Rupy with us, because Rupy is one of the unsung heroes out of Jamaica, Hope a man know Rupy. Rupy is now a JP, but when I met Rupy was just a soldier in the trench, fighting on behalf of Jamaican people.
Still a soldier in the
welcome.
Thank you, bro.
Yes, bro.
Thank you, Miguel.
Yes, bro. Yes.
Welcome.
Gentlemen.
Welcome.
Mm-hmm. Gentlemen.
Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
You see what's happening in the Middle East. You see what's happening. It's violence and brutality. Hamas and Israel at it again. When will all of this end, bro? When will it end? The blood, the brutality, the violence. When will it end? I asked Mr. Horton to lead off a discussion on this issue. The Middle East, what's happening there, and when will it end? I have a better question to ask Mr. Horton, and it's a question which the Rasta man been saying for a long time. Should we, descendants of slaves, be concerned with what is happening in the Middle East between the Arabs and the Jewish state? And the Rastaman raised this and point to the fact that both of them enslave us. So why should we be concerned with what is happening in the Middle East? Mr. Horton, you want to take that? Should we be concerned?
Well, first of all, let me say this. Welcome to everybody, including the members of the panel. I am not an authority on the Middle East, and neither am I as prepared as I would like to be, but I can share some views which are, of course, my own views. And to answer that question in a nutshell, when will this end? I refer, I think, to some words from one of the whalers. I think it was Bonnie. I can't remember good now. Which is to say, there will be no peace without justice.
Peter.
It was Peter Tosh.
Peter Tosh. That's right. So I want to start there and say, what is the issue? What is really behind? There are many wars that have occurred in the last 70 years, but I believe none more complicated, none more difficult to understand than the struggle between Israel and Palestinians. And first of all, let me say this. When you listen, or when I listen to the media here in the United States, including BBC, who I would say I listen to 70% of my news from BBC, they all begin with the horrific attack by Hamas against the Israeli people, as if that is the real start of the whole issue. The truth is, it's not. But I want to make it clear that one cannot, well, I don't think anyone civilized person, any civilized group can accept or support the extremely horrific incident that occurred last weekend, Saturday, where fighters from, they say it's Hamas. I believe we can talk more about some of the challenges that Hamas must be facing. I'm not living there, but I can appreciate some of the issues. And in that, if you watch the news, you will see that they were able to break through what was considered to be one of the most fortified lines in the world, between the dome and their technology and so on. Hamas fighters were able to break through, at least 1,000 of them, from the looks of it. I don't have a number, but I believe I heard that on one of the news reports. They attacked a mass festival, and then they also attacked a fair number of kibbutz and communities in the area between Gaza and the mainland Israel. So it's clear that some of those communities were occupied by illegally, and I'll come to that in a minute, on land that has been taken over by Israel, and where they have inhabited several areas. But the point I'm making, the real point I want to make, is that nobody, well, let me not say nobody, but no civilized person can accept the brutal killing, raping, beheading of young people, teenagers who were civilians who were at a festival, breaking into several homes. The Western media was very good at interviewing individual Israelis. A woman that I saw, she managed to hide and to escape, but her daughter, the daughter boyfriend, and other members of the family were taken by Hamas, and some of them, of course, as hostages, kidnapped. And I just want to make sure that for those who may be taping the show, that we condemn. I certainly condemn that brutality. I don't think it undermined the cause of Hamas when something like that happened. And I will say a few more words about that. But Hamas is not, they're not idiots. They're not crazy people in the sense. Even though the West brand them as terrorists, the history of the Palestinian people and the Gaza Strip will show that over many years since the inception of the Israeli state at the end of World War II, I'm going to mention a number of documents that I was able to just quickly review. I'm not happy with, because there are several details that I couldn't manage to capture. One of them is a report by Amnesty International. For those of you who may want to make a note, it's called Israel's Apartheid Against Palestinians. I quote Amnesty International because it's a reputable organization that keeps a track. And in this report, it talks about, the heading is Cruel System of Domination and Crimes Against Humanity, which was published. Let me see if I can find the year here. I have it open here, but to read it and go through it, this was published in 2022. So this is last year. And it gives a very good outline of the inhumanity, the brutality. They refer to it as apartheid, which is, as you and I know, was prevalent in South Africa. It's the same system, not based on color, but certainly based on nationality. Jews can become citizens of Israel overnight, have certain rights wherever you come from, and those rights are not affected if you are a Jew. But if you are a Palestinian, they are different rights for you. And this report shows that up to last, let's see, it gives a good, the reason why it's good also, it provides all the maps of Israel in the early stages and how the outline of maps of Israel and maps of Palestine, which show how over time this has changed. That's the first thing I want to say, that this Hamas action is not, let me try to find the right words. It's not born of nothing. It's not like they are crazy. It's born of many decades of oppression. And the report from Amnesty begins with a quote from Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the current prime minister. And that quote was taken in March 2019. Israel is not a state of all its citizens, but rather the nation state of the Jewish people and only them. And that makes it clear what that means. Palestinians who live both in occupied territory in the Gaza Strip, some of whom work in Israel, have to go through various corridors, exits, etc., and who are subject to different rules than a Jew. The main problem, however, is that under the Netanyahu government, even before he came to power, the right wing in Islam in Israel has been ceding, capturing Palestinian land, building on it, and handing it over to Jews. And this is what, in my view, would have led to the current outbreak. It's another explosion from a situation which is born of injustice and which has not been addressed. Today, we are waiting. I believe it's almost imminent that they have amassed the Israeli Defense Force have amassed a large occupation force. I think is what, 300,000 or 300,000, I think it is, on the border.
300,000.
Yes, on the border. As you know, they have already killed more civilians without suffering any losses, any new losses, because they have had the power of our Air Force, who have been bombing the Gaza Strip. They have even bombed nearby countries, Lebanon. I heard that they bombed the airport in Syria. And by this method, which you would have seen on the news, the fact that they have announced 24 hours for half of this Gaza population, 1.1 million people, to move from the north to the south, and so on. They include the hospitals, where the doctors, the heads of those hospitals, have indicated that they're not moving. They cannot move. It's impossible, between the problems that patients or people who are being treated. The demographics of the Gaza Strip is a high percent of youth. I forget the number now, but it's. And the question we must ask ourselves at the end of the day is whether 10 years from now, if as long, those kids who have lost their parents, their siblings, and their friends, who are going to grow up by the time they reach 15, 16, 18 years old, will they be seeking revenge, retaliation for the actions of the Israeli Defense Force? The only just solution is to put back on the table the idea of a two-state coexistence between the Palestinian people and the Israeli state, where lines of demarcation are respected, where lands that have been seized illegally outside of the United Nations conventions are respected, and where all sections of the Palestinian people, including Hamas, are part of the negotiated settlement. Yes, I agree with the release of kidnapped Israelis, and bringing an end to this military blockade. It's not going to happen right now, because the right-wing government in Israel is determined to exact more than their pound of flesh. We have to condemn the current actions of the Israeli government. Well, I certainly do, because it doesn't lead to a two-state solution. It simply is another cycle of the same thing. The question you asked at the beginning, that this is a war between Arabs, Jews, and I noticed you didn't mention Christians. But that's one way of looking at it. That's not the way I look at it. I believe that we, as ordinary working people, support people who are oppressed in the same way that our struggle during slavery was supported by the Asian slaves, was supported by the American slaves, who themselves, like our forefathers, fought to end slavery. Our struggle during the colonial time, when we were under British rule, we supported the struggle in Africa. That's what Bob Marley did when he traveled into Africa, and he released that song, War. And that's what Peter Tosh did when he released the song, the words, no peace without justice. That during the colonial time, at the same time that the Palestinian people were rising up, and up to last year, where they had in this report from Amnesty, they refer to a national strike. Let me see if I can find it, because it shows the extent to which the concept that Hezbollah is an isolated, unconnected force.
Hamas, not Hezbollah.
Hamas, yes. I'm sorry. What did I say?
Hezbollah.
Yeah, Hamas. On 18th of May, 2021, Palestinians across cities and villages in Israel and the occupied West Bank and Gaza Strip closed their offices, shops, restaurants, and schools. This is 2000. This was a national strike across Palestine, including people working in Israel, Palestinians working in Israel, abandoned to close their offices, shops, restaurants, and schools, abandoned construction sites, and refused to report to work for the whole day. In a display of unity not seen in decades, they defied the territorial fragmentation and segregation they face in their daily lives and observed a general strike to protest their shared repression by Israel. And then it goes on to give specific conditions that led to that strike, which we don't have to refer to. The general condition that led to that strike is the brutal repression generated against the Palestinian people by the military, the Israeli military force, who are considered an occupying power. So
let me ask you a question.
I basically I'm finished. If there are any questions. Oh, the question, I didn't answer the question directly.
Why should we be concerned in light of the fact that these are our former slave owners? They enslave black people, they invade Africa, they do all sorts of things. descendants of slaves. Why should we be concerned?
Yes, and it's a
That's
good
the question.
Yes, I think we should be concerned because the defeat of oppression cannot and has never been, whatever progress we have made to end the colonial system, and any progress go forward to end oppression, has been benefited by the unity of all oppressed people, regardless of what language they speak, regardless of what religion they hold, their political affiliation. It is on that basis, as I was indicating earlier, during slavery, which we have good documentation, is on that basis that progress have been made. So that is our concern. It should not be based on the fact not all Arabs oppressed black people or Africans. Not all Jews were on the side of Hitler. Some of them were, and certainly not all Christians. In our own culture, we know about Christians, including pastors, who stood up for the abolition of slavery, and some who, when slavery was being instituted, they walked one hand with the gun and the next hand with the Bible. So that would be my answer to that question. We should be concerned and we should actively support the liberation of oppressed people, wherever in the world it occurred.
Rupi.
Can I give one example?
I'm interested in. Go ahead, John.
Yes. In South Africa, which is the root of oppression under apartheid. When Mandela came to Jamaica, he came because he recognized that during the Manley years and during the development of Jamaica, we contributed, we educated our kids, we contributed in the United Nations and elsewhere. We may not have been able to offer, weapons. We don't make guns in Jamaica. But we certainly supported the struggle of the ANC under Mandela to help to speed up the liberation of South Africa. And some of the same players today who support the brutality of Israel without giving regard to the historical nature of this fight were the ones supporting the apartheid regime by giving them weapons. So some of the same people, their history go back not to the side of freedom, but to the side of oppression. Okay. So that is my answer, boss. That's my picture.
Okay, I want to hear your view, Rupi.
All right. In the main, I agree with most of what John said. But as it relating to the particular question around whether we as Afro-Jamaicans or as black people, so to speak, whether we should basically get involved and support the Palestinians. In fact, I must say yesterday, I have a discussion because I have a brother, a blood brother, smaller brother who is part of the brotherhood, that group, in a nutshell, black nationalism, who basically carry a line and support a view that said that ultimately the black man is going to do back what the white man did to us in terms of all those years of murdering and raping and so on and so forth and all of that. And I tell him that I disagree with him fundamentally, simply because part of the problem with the white race as it relating to black people is a fear that, in fact, we can do what they did to us in the past. And those of us who recognize that oppressed people is oppressed people, regardless of color, creed, or race, recognize that it is imperative that we support oppressed people wherever in the world they are, or whatever shade they appear to be. So, in a nutshell, as I say, I support John thing. I put it a little bit different than how John put it. As a people, we have to give our unreserving support to oppressed people. And in fact, I am a little bit, in terms of the support of the West, both Europe and America, as it relating to Israel. Israel is supposed to be coming out of Holocaust, as it relating to Hitler and the German, what they did to that set of people. And sometimes it make you wonder if they are doing maybe the same or worse, so to speak, to the Palestinians. I remember one British Prime Minister actually indicated, it might be Cameron, indicated that Palestine is like an open prison, so to speak, meaning that the entire Palestine, based on the extent of the restriction in terms of movement, basic amenities that is controlled by Israel and so on and so forth and all of that. And against that background, all of us should raise our voice and basically denounce the wickedness that is taking place against the Palestinian people.
Patrick, last Rattigan, you have anything to say to add?
Yeah,
Subtract?
yeah. I would want to weigh in a bit on first on what John said, and then certainly what Rupi said. But my whole perspective on the whole thing is goes a little bit deeper. Yeah, it goes a lot deeper actually, because the first thing is that when we really think of the Palestinian-Israeli situation, it is one which goes back centuries, right? This is one historian, just to have a cutoff point, go back as far as the 1880s, right? When it was right approaching the end of what they call the Ottoman Empire, right? Which is when Turkey was the main colonialist in the region, right? The main Arab colonialist in the region and control the whole, that whole area, including Palestine. And Palestine back then was predominantly Palestinian people who were made up primarily of Arab Muslims. But also, right, it beyond the religious side, there was Palestinian people as a whole. And Palestinian people as a whole included other religious sects as well. It included some Christians and also some Jews, right? Now, in terms of the Jews, both the Jews and the Christians were a minority. The majority at the time, you were talking about primarily Arabs. And fast forward to when it really became a problem, because during that time they lived they lived pretty much, they coexisted together, right? But they were under colonialism. Now, when the British defeated the Ottoman Empire, right, that's when situation pretty much changed, right? Because a big part of the Jewish history that is left out is the fact that the Europeans were the main oppressors of the Jews, right? And they kicked the Jews all over Europe, right? They expelled them out of Rome, right? And also, fast forward, right, we know about the Holocaust, right, with what the Germans did to the Jews. So it's a real complicated situation which go way back, right? And you have to look at it in that way in order to fully understand it. Now, to come to the present day situation, one of the things that must be understood is that when you think about Israel as we know it now, we're not just talking about Jews, right? Jews is more the religious side of Israel. And Jews are a minority in the ruling government of Israel, right? You're really talking about the Zionists. They are the real
Rulers.
Yeah, the real rulers of Israel right now, right? And they are the ones really that we're talking about when we talk about oppression of the Palestinians and all of that. Because at the same time, one of the things that is not carried in our regular news is what the situation is in Israel politically, right? This right-wing government does not enjoy a majority support. In fact, in order to form the government, he had to form a coalition, right? Netanyahu is one of the most right-wing governments ever to come to power in Israel, right? And Netanyahu has been the main one who has stand up to be an obstacle in the two states solution, right? That's the first thing to be noted. The other thing is that even in terms of what happened, right, last weekend, right, it is not something that overall the Israeli people support for them to go in and try to present a military solution, because there is no military solution to this situation. There cannot be, because this situation is not what started it, right? Moreover, what Hamas has done to Jewish people, right? Zionist government has done far worse to Palestinians. So this is a situation that has been going on and on. In terms of how it connects to us and us understanding this, is that one thing we have in common, Jamaica share with Palestinians, right? That common colonial power, Britain. But Britain is the main one who is the instigator behind all of this. Britain is the one who, after the Holocaust, right, decided to back the setting up of an Israeli state in Palestine. And in terms of the designated area, what has been happening is that the Israelis have been extending themselves onto Palestinian lands and forcing the Palestinians further north, right? So they have been reducing their area of living as Jews from across the world have been moving to Israel to live in a Jewish state, right? We see as recent as under the Trump regime, where Trump was the main one again, right? The whole right-wing situation where Trump pushed the whole situation to the point where they set up capital for Israel in Jerusalem. And that was one of the main issues that was settled at the United Nations, that Jerusalem should be shared by both the Muslim as well as the Christians, right? Because it is of importance to both, right? And they push it, right? And which only further develop more strife among the people. So this situation is way more complicated. There are many tentacles to it, right? But we don't have the time to get into all of them. But the situation right now that faces us is one where Israel, right, the Israeli government right now is using their power, right, their military power, right, to inflict more harm, right, and more hardship on Palestinian people. The Palestinians already, right, are not able to develop a self-government in Palestine, right? They are not able to sustain themselves even in terms of clean drinking water, in terms of jobs, in terms of infrastructure, all of these things, right? And this is one of the reasons why the Gaza has deteriorated into a major concentration area, because they have been so backed into a situation where they have not been able to really eke out a development. So this situation is real complicated, and one we should be really concerned about, because it is one which can actually spread, right? It can spread to involving other Arab countries. It can spread to broadening the war beyond just one where you're talking about Israel bombing Palestine, right? Already, just today, the Iranians have been warning the Israelis about steps they are taking, which means that Iran is not comfortable with this, with the steps that the Jews are prepared to take militarily, right? Now we don't know if they're gonna just sit by, because we have already seen a situation in the past where they have sit by. Egypt has decided to shut their borders to any refugees coming from Palestine, right? And with that happening, it really is showing that we're heading for a humanitarian crisis in Palestine, and also the risk of the war actually spreading, right? So this is a situation which we have to pay close attention to, right? And we have to speak out and get a better understanding, right? So that this doesn't spread beyond where it is already, right? As to how it links with the Jamaican situation, like I said, right? It's one where it gives us an insight to understand better how colonialism works and how colonialism has affected not only us in Jamaica, but in other parts of the world. A lot of what is experienced in Jamaica, in fact, is not only experienced in Jamaica, right? And it is as a result of the deep-rooted colonial past that we all share, right? Which still have an impact on us and the way in which we live, right? So it is a concern for everyone, right? As Rupi said, right? Injustice to people in one section of the world is injustice to people in all parts of the world. That's what it means.
Yes. Will?
Yeah, I agree with John and Rupi and Patrick, and especially on the point as to why we need to support the struggle in Palestine. But my jump off point in this discussion is the reaction of the West, particular like the US and Canada, to the Palestinian, the recent upsurge in the violence with Hamas. Their response has been as if the Palestinians don't exist, as if there are no innocent people in Palestine, and everyone in Palestine is guilty of this intrusion into Israel. And therefore, they have been wholeheartedly supporting Israeli daily bombardment of the Gaza, right? None of these Western countries have come out and said to Israel, look, there need to be some kind of proportional response to what has happened in Israel vis-a-vis the Hamas incursion, right? No, none of them have come out and said, go easy. In fact, what the US did, the US sent 2 aircraft carriers to the region with special forces, right, to help Israel, ignoring totally the humanitarian situation in Gaza, ignoring totally the daily bombardment of Israel in civilian areas, right? Paying no attention to the killing of kids and women and innocent people and the destruction of the infrastructure in the Gaza, right? And that has been the major problem that has led to this particular situation that is happening right now, because the West has totally ignored the daily happenings, the daily incursions of the Israeli Defense Forces, the daily atrocities of Israeli settlers against the Palestinian people. They have totally ignored that over the years, right? And we have to remember, every person have a right to defend themselves if they face oppression and violence. So at some point in time, whether it would have been Hamas, whether it would have been Fatah, or any other faction in Palestine, somebody would have to react, because you can't face daily oppression day in, day out, year after year, and you don't expect that these people are going to react. The West, particularly the United States and Canada, they have tried to delegitimize the leadership of the Palestinian people by calling most of their organizations terrorists. We have to remember, Hamas is a political organization, right? Hamas is no hurry come up terrorist organization just about military struggle. Hamas was elected in Gaza by the Palestinian people, right? So when the West call Hamas terrorists, what they are doing, it means that from they call Hamas terrorists, they don't have to negotiate with Hamas. Hamas putting forward the ideas of the Palestinian people they represent. And Hamas is a militant and popular force. If they call Hamas terrorists, they don't have to negotiate with them, right? They can try to bring international pressure to ignore whatever demands Hamas and the Palestinian people make through Hamas, right? So I am concerned about the response of the West, because if the West is one of the main reasons why Israel has not been cooperating in finding a real solution to the Palestinian problem. They say they want a two-state solution, right? But they have been rejecting all Palestinian demands, right, for a two-state solution, purely because the Western countries are backing them in every move. One of the things Israel and the backers of Israel have done successfully is to try and mute all criticism of Israel by saying, if you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semite,
Anti-Semitist.
anti-Semitic, right?
Right.
So all the backers of Israel, all the lobbyists for Israel in the West, they give all this money to the political organizations, to the Democratic Party, to the Republican Party, and all these politicians are beholden to Jewish money. And so whatever the Jews do, you find neither the Democratic Party in America nor the Republicans, none of them will come out and say one single word against Israel, right? None of them come out and say a single word about the daily killings of Palestinian people by the Israeli Defense Forces. None of them come out and say, stop the daily incursion by Israeli settlers into Gaza and into the West Bank, taking people land and building houses, right? And extending Israeli territory. None of them talking about that because they are in the pockets of the lobbyists of the Jewish people in America and across the world. So right now, Palestine is facing almost a blackout in terms of anybody saying, boy, ease the pressure on Palestine. These people are people too. If you look at the media, right? None of these major media are saying anything about the innocent people who are being killed in Palestine, the destruction of the infrastructure in Palestine, or look at the major cause of what is happening in Palestine and try come to a meaningful solution.
No, come back
I
in,
looked
man.
at
Come back in, man.
the speech. I looked at the speech by Joe Biden and the speech by the Prime Minister, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And none of these speeches on the Hamas incursion, none of these speeches even mention the Palestinian. It's as if these people don't exist. All they talk about was the atrocities of Hamas against the Jewish state, right? And Hamas is a terrorist organization. And these people are saying Hamas does not represent the aspirations of the Palestinian people. How can they say that? They don't represent the aspirations of the Palestinian people. So, and Hamas is a popular Palestinian organization, political organization, which was voted into power. Hamas did not come to power in Gaza by any nefarious means. Hamas was voted in, right? But because these people wanted to delegitimize the leadership of the Palestinian people, they say they are terrorists and they don't represent the views of the Palestinian people. And until that stops, there won't be any peace in Palestine or in Israel.
Mr. Radigan, you have anything you want to add? Or you want to skip this one?
No, no. I think I lived in the Middle East for quite a number of years, but not much to add, to what the participants have said. But going back to your question, how should we be concerned about this? As a person who anyone who cares about human life, black, white, or whatever, you should be concerned. And should be more concerned about the capabilities of the countries involved in terms of a world war. This could spark a world war because you have so many players with nuclear capabilities on either side, supporters. And so I'm genuinely concerned. Yes. And so I'm genuinely concerned about that. And then you look and you ask yourself the question, what is the issue? What is this fight about that's been going on for decades? What is this fight about? It's about land. It's not about religion. It's about land. And second question, if the issue, the primary issue, is about land, how do you address apportioning
Yes.
the land so that
Link,
both
the
parties,
link. You have to click on the link.
both groups can live in peace and harmony? And therein lies the complexity.
Refresh it, bro.
Like Patrick said, this
Yeah,
issue
you have to
is
refresh your browser.
It's a very complex issue. It's a very complex issue to resolve. The issue itself is easy. You know, if it's about, okay, who should occupy the land? How much space should they occupy? That's even more difficult. So we have identified the issue, but I think the problem is, how do we resolve it? And I don't know if outside interference it just seems to be an intractable issue, as if there is no solution, because the parties have met time and time and time again. They've met by themselves and they've met through third parties. And it just seems like it's to no use. So I am concerned, to answer your question, I'm concerned of the loss of life, loss of any human life. And I'm also concerned that this could spark something even bigger than what we anticipate. So now I'll just leave it at that.
Hello, Mr. Reagan, you finished?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, you can hear me.
Yeah,
well, gentlemen, I listen to you, but I listen to you. I do understand the sentiment that, you know, oppressed people have to support oppressed people and what have you. But I am still confused. I want to admit that. One, I agree, you know, in terms of people's right to self-defense. That is a cardinal principle. Everybody have that right. But somehow I can't move away from the historical experience, you know, because these are the very folks who invade Egypt and turned into a Arab nation. These are the very folks who finance slave trade. And, you know, I'm confused, you know, I'm not sure. All I can say is that we shouldn't enjoy the right to self-defense. You have the right to defend yourself, and nobody can take that away from Israel. Nor should one take it away from the Palestinians. But as it relates to black people getting involved, you know, Rasta people getting involved in this conflict over land which originally belonged to black people, you know, with them fighting over. So I don't know. I'm confused. I'm really confused, you know. Certainly, I agree with you that this war, if not managed carefully, this conflict, it can lead to a much wider conflict in that area. And if Iran pull in, its problem, Hezbollah is going to come involved and what have you. But having said all of that, the relevance to Jamaica, is this relevant to Jamaica and the problem that we face right now? Yeah, preoccupation with this issue. Is it relevant to the issue that Jamaica face right now? And I say that because in this week issue of The Economist, there's a major article talking about chaos in the Caribbean, the whole the movement of guns into the Caribbean and the crime rate. You know? So, Mr. Radigan, you and I talked earlier, and we talk about some issues around Mr. Golden and the handing over of his documents. You follow Mr. Radigan?
Yeah, I'm listening to you. Yeah, I'm listening to you.
So So, having said that, I'm not sure we can exhaust this conflict anymore, other than oppressed people must be in solidarity with oppressed people. That is the sentiment I'm getting. Am I correct?
Yeah, but if I can just mention one thing to what you said, Mikey, in terms of being confused. I can understand the confusion because, like I said, because this situation is so complicated and the way in which we get the news, a lot of times only add to the confusion, right? It doesn't really clear anything up. Right? Now, even when I talk about the Ottoman Empire and Turkey and all of that, a lot of people don't know that Turkey is not even part of the Middle East. Turkey is an European country, right? And Turkey is not even Arab. Turkey is an Islamic country, but again, people tend to lump Arabs with Islam, and
With Muslim.
also, yeah, and also, not understanding the region and who is who, right? They don't know who is European, who is
What's
from the
that
Middle East,
song?
and so on. You know, so that leads to a whole lot of confusion.
Again,
Mikey,
that song.
you hearing me?
Yeah, go ahead.
You guys hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, man. Yeah, man.
There's a point that Patrick raised earlier on. Let me apologize. I don't know where I just up off, but I finally get on. And I think John went at pains to ensure that he make the point. Patrick said that what Hamas basically do recently is something that the Zionists have been doing for literally some time now. It come across in a way, and it sort of imply to some extent that what Hamas did, particularly the point John make about them 200 and odd participants at some concert, primarily young people. I think all of us should condemn that. There's no question about that. And I know that is not what Patrick meant. But if you make the statement and say that what is meant to the Jew now is what the Jew have been doing to the Palestinians people over years, it come across in that type of way. In fact, let me hasten to say that if you guys recall that Hamas was elected by the Palestinian people a couple of years ago. Remember that the PLO, the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, was the primary vehicle as it relating to the representation of the Palestinian people. But with the constant pressure on the PLO and the removing of Arafat, to a great extent, the people themselves become a little bit, feeling that the PLO was getting a little bit weak and so on and so forth. And in fact, they voted in Hamas, which is more a left,
more radical,
more center left PLO. And what you have now is extremism actually meeting extremism to a great extent. So I think I should make that point.
Okay.
Maybe you guys might disagree, but that is my own assessment.
No, but Rupi, right? To that point, right? Yeah, you're absolutely right. I never raised it, in terms of trying to juxtapose, what Hamas did and what the Israelis did, right? I only raise it to say that the problem is much deeper than last week, right? That's my point, right? So you're absolutely right. It's not a tit for tat, right? It's not how you do something to me, so I am, retaliating by doing the same thing to your people, right? It's really something that goes much deeper than that, right? And also, the other point which you raise in terms of Hamas and Fatah, right, or the Palestinian Authority, PLO, right? It's really a matter of like changing of the guards, because what has happened in Palestine over the years, because what has happened is that the life expectancy in Palestine has greatly been reduced, right? And you're having a whole lot of young people now in Palestine rising up who are in support of Hamas, right? That's how Hamas really comes to power. That's what sustains Hamas, right? Because Hamas is primarily backed by young people, right? Young people who have grown up, right? Some of them, coming out of the womb, right? What they learn about and what they experience is the atrocities of the Israelis, right? The lack of opportunities, the lack of education, not even so much a lack of education, because in that region, them say the Palestinians are some of the most educated people, right? But the problem of infrastructure, the whole problem of self-determination, right? It's that stifling, right, of their democracy that is really, right, at the crux of this matter, and the stealing of the land. That's really what's at the crux of the matter.
I get a feedback from somebody's mic, like a radio or
bad feedback too.
Yeah, is speaker thing or something. Go on, no.
Yeah, stop.
Stop,
Okay.
no.
Yeah. Well, I take all the points from Brethren. I really take all the points that you present so far, and it's a long struggle. It's going to take much more to resolve this thing, because hatred on both sides, both sides justify them action using religious texts, whether it's the Torah or the Quran, they justify the action. So we just have to just wait and look and see where this thing going, and we hope that a level head can prevail. That's all we can hope for right now, because extremism on both sides is just going to lead to more bloodshed and destruction, upon a people which is oppressed continuously since 1948. So on that note, I want to shift to something more relevant to Jamaica.
Just 1 second, Mike. If I can just say one thing before, which might offer some real hope. We cannot negate the fact that right now in Israel, right, there are movements in Israel right now that are in support of moving forward with a two-state solution, right?
Yes, yeah,
it's part of the reason why Netanyahu, right, is not as supported or not as popular as a lot of people, underestimate.
Yeah, I know that. Right? I know the liberal.
That's one of the things too, and the whole apartheid situation in Israel, because it is not just the Palestinians who face atrocities in Israel. Ethiopian Jews face the same thing, who leave Ethiopia to go and live in Israel.
Yeah.
Right? So the problem, like I say, has many tentacles to it. Right? And there's a whole lot to be understood. So there's hope. There's hope.
There is a good book that I want to point you to. It's called The Crusade Through an Arab Eyes. And if you get a chance to read this book, you should. This book it go into the historical journey of the Palestinian people from the 11th century. And it talk about the British. Funny enough, before the British came to dominate that area was dominated by the French. It was the French dislodged. No, the French was the original colonizer, and then the British came in. But I would suggest you get a copy of this book. Okay. On that note, I want to shift to something more relevant to Jamaica situation right now. In this issue of the Economist, there's an article titled "Chaos Awash with American Guns: Violence in the Caribbean Awash with American Guns." And the writer of this article went on to say that in 2022, according to Inside Crime, a site that covers organized crime, the murder rate per 100,000 people climbed to 53 in Jamaica, 78 in the Turk and Caicos Islands, and 39 in Trinidad and Tobago. Crime remains a major challenge in Jamaica, this in spite of the recent report from the Commissioner of Police. And I invite Rupi Walters to join us today. This is one of the reasons, because as a JP and an organizer, he's on the ground. And he can give us an insight as to what's happening on the ground, the whole police method and all of that stuff. And I know we talk somewhat about community policing. So, Rupi, give us your intake on crime reduction strategies in Jamaica and in your neck of the hood. What's happening?
No, repeat the question.
What is happening on the ground when it comes to policing and all of that stuff? According to the Commissioner of Police, murder is on the decline. But the Economist is reporting that in 2022, murder increased. And the murder rate just now is 53 per 100,000. So it's still a challenge. What is your take on what's happening?
All right. First, let me just put forward a disclaimer. I don't speak with no authority on crime. I'm not a criminologist. And equally as a JP, I'm not speaking as a JP. I'm just speaking as an ordinary Jamaican who basically, like the vast majority of us, are just sick and tired. At the extent of criminality, the extent of murder, and so on and so forth. So that disclaimer that basically I'm not speaking as a JP, I'm not speaking as an ordinary citizen. And secondly, I really don't speak with no authority on this subject, so to speak. I really want to start with a little backdrop. I think the first thing we must remember that the JSAF was founded in 1716 during the period of slavery, and that its primary objective was basically to protect the property class and to protect those who now we would refer to as the bourgeoisie, so to speak. The second thing I would want to note is that it was 1973 before Jamaica had the first black commissioner. And I think that in itself speaks volume. It was 1973 before we get the first commissioner. And as it relating to the statistic, we lost 1,179 lives through murder in the year 22 up to September. And up to September this year, we actually done 1,038, which is minus 14. Mark you. Minus 14 can be considered as significant. But in relationship to where we were last year, September, I don't think that is a significant dent in terms of reduction. I think it is also important to know that in June of this year, our present ranking as it relating to the global list of countries, as it relating to the most murderous country, we rank 10. And
We rank what?
we must also remember that in the past, sometimes we're not the first 5, right? There's so many things, and I mean we can speak about some of the problem, and in fact we can stay here the whole day talking about the problem as it relating to crime in Jamaica. Certainly, there is the issue of the treatment of the police. I think recently the Commissioner Anderson actually interdicted Corporal James for simply standing up for the people them who elect him as them chief delegate, to stand up for them, to talk about them bread and butter issue, to basically to represent them, to advocate to them for them as a union and as a union leader. And I think that in itself as in our way show the extent to which we have deteriorated as a people, right? In terms of the commissioner trying to put this one under pressure because he basically defend the cops. And then the police, as you know, the police have a lot of problems as it relating to where there are the various stations, dilapidated, run down. They don't have basic facilities and so on and so forth. The whole question too of having problems with vehicle, just availability of vehicle when people call and so on and so forth. Basic equipment like vests and all of that and so on and so forth. But there is also the problem in terms of how the police force deal with ordinary Jamaican. And again, it's related to the point I raised first in terms of the backdrop. Just two different approach to ordinary Jamaican as against how uptown and lighter skin, with all due respect, Jamaican is being treated. And that a significant amount of the crime are not necessarily, yes, to some extent, is at the bottom. But the major crime, the trafficking of gun, drugs, and so on and so forth, a significant amount of that take place in the middle and the upper middle, so to speak. And I am of the view that the security force really are not zeroing into that type of a situation. When you look at the crimes in general, the whole thing of human trafficking, the question of sex workers, the constant exploiting of laborers, really trafficking, turning some of them people into drug mules. The question of human smuggling, the passport thing, that Mexico-US situation, the question of extortion. Extortion, as you know, is a major issue locally, particularly extortion as it relating to transportation, the construction, and I mean, the extortion thing go as far as simple little people who are peddling little thing in a market and so on and so forth have to be paying these so-called dons and lead of gangs and so on and so forth and all of that. So that there's tremendous problem, and some of them you can consider to be small problem that the security forces incapable of dealing with. And I think it that in itself develop a sense of what I would consider to be people feel that you can do A, B, C, and D and get away with it. And against that background, it graduates. And I think that is one of the reasons why we are in the state we are as it relates to the extent of murder. But let me hasten to say that with all of this, and if we examine the scamming, if we examine the trafficking, if we examine the drug, exporting, if we examine counterfeit products primarily by the Chinese that come into the country and supported by other locals who get it cheap or get it for little and nothing and peddle it. All of these things are the bottom line, in my own opinion, is socio-economic. But if you examine every one of them, the primary aim at the end of the day, including most of the murders by gangs and so on and so forth, the bottom line is economics. And I am of the view that the country must spend more time as it relating to creating opportunities, as it relating to creating jobs, as it relating to ensuring that the condition of growth is not surrounding what them call most of the DPI, these little sweatshop that them have our children leaving tertiary institution earning $120,000 every fortnight or $140,000 for the month. And the same thing like the traditional thing that Thiago would have when called 807, where if you go to the bathroom, the supervisor wants to know how long you go to the bathroom and how long you can stay. And if you're sick and you have to rest for half an hour, that half an hour is being taken out of your pay. If them set a threshold for you to reach in order to earn some extra money, you can never reach that threshold because the goalpost is being moved. And all of these things. And I said that to say this, that these conditionalities, not only in terms of brain drain and it's sent with some of our best talent abroad and so on and so forth. But the point I'm making is that the country will have to find meaningful way to go train, because part of the thing is for us to train our young people at all levels, where we can start talk about we can have to bring in much engineer because the country is short at this and so on and so forth. So I'm speaking at all levels, at the bottom, at the middle, and at the upper middle, in terms of trying to deal with the problem. The SOE, again, is just another stupidity. You know, I think one person once say you can't do the same thing over and over and over and expect a different result. I think this thing has been instituted now for nearly a decade. And there's no year that you can say that crime and murder based on the SOE basically reduce over time. And for the government, because this is the government main strategy, is to basically use the state of emergency in areas where there's flare up, where there's gun violence, and so on and so forth. And then one of the things that is happening now, I mean the so-called rude boys, them get so used to this thing, and that sometimes just a couple yards away from the state, I mean the blockage, so to speak, because basically put some rails across the street and you claim so you're checking vehicle in and out and so on. And sometimes these fellows just a couple of yards from these rails, shoot and kill people. So it's just a joke. It's just really a joke. As I said, brothers, I think that in a nutshell, I don't have 1,000,001 solution, but certainly I know that the root of the problem is socio-economic. The root of the problem lies in the extent to which every year, right, come around summer, we send out literally hundreds of thousands of young people out of high school, and 9 out of 10 times they have nowhere going. And they are basically enticed by those in the scamming, those in the gang and the extortion and so on and so forth. Particularly in a situation where it is reported that some household, about 40% of our household is run primarily by women, so to speak. And there is a lot of other supporting element to this. But I am of the view that at the end of the day, in terms of we trying to correct this problem, we must address the socio-economic problem and opportunities for young people, and opportunities meaning training, meaning providing more jobs, and so on and so forth. I rest my case. I am willing to listen to you guys.
Ratigan, you're the authority on this. What do you have to say? You just heard a man from the trench.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you have to say?
The question is, where do I start? Because it can start from.
There's a sound, a background sound that is.
Rupert, that is Rupert.
There's a sound coming from your mic, Rupi.
You have to
My no. Again, mute my one.
Yeah, mute
Yeah,
it.
mute. Yes.
Go ahead, no, Ratigan.
Yeah, where you want me to start? Because I mean, this is like, this
Anyway,
is like
it's up to you. You're the man with the experience, you're the man who applied to be the commissioner of police. And my
That
question,
means
you listened to, I heard.
that don't mean me have the experience. A lot of people
Well, that's true.
experience. Yeah.
That's true. But Rupi is saying the socio-economic condition.
Hold on, if you're going to start anywhere, you're going to look at the JCF. Start with leadership, right? Any organization, that's where you should start. Don't start.
Can't hear you,
you can't hear me?
Microphone.
You're too far from your mic.
Far from your mic. Hear you now.
Okay. All right, hold on a second. All right, how about now? You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I was saying that you need to start with leadership. And if you have an organization without leadership, then you're doomed, no matter the best laid plans. And when we talk about plans, the JCF, if you go back over the last, I'd say, 15 years, they have so many plans. They don't, and people keep asking, where's the crime plan? Where's the crime plan? You don't need to come up with another crime plan. They have crime plans. They're using one now called Plan Secure Jamaica, which is a cascade off of something called the National Security Plan. When you read those documents, very well written, poorly implemented. And what's even worse, you have a Minister of National Security who proclaimed to the entire world, to Jamaica and the entire world by extension, that he was charged with the responsibility of spending 1.2 billion with a B US dollars from 2016 to the end of this fiscal year, which will end March 31st of next year, to modernize the JCF and the national security of the country. And where are we today? We're worse than we were before we got this plan and all of this money. We're worse. Go back and look at the stats. We're far worse. Look at the modernization of the JCF. They're supposed to provide free uniform to the people who put their lives on the line. We don't see that happening. The people have to pay for the uniform out of their pockets. And as Rupert said, if you look at just the basic tools you need to fight crime in Jamaica, starting with vehicles or working conditions, they don't have them. Yet they come out and they openly proclaim that they're the government that has spent more money fighting crime than any other government in the history of Jamaica. In fact, they have a police commissioner who's the highest paid police commissioner in the history of Jamaica. For what? We don't say we're not getting the bang for a buck. Let me just give you some, as I was listening to Rupert, I started writing down some notes, right? I told you about the plan Secure Jamaica, and people listen to me. That is the crime plan. And the Prime Minister has said it several times, and people not listening because they're listening to hear crime plan. They're not going to hear those two words. What they're going to hear is Plan Secure Jamaica. That is the crime plan plus. It's a national security plan. I don't know who fool up Jamaica and tell them so they need to have a national security plan. What they really need is a crime plan. But somebody tell them, no, you need to protect your borders, you need to do this, you need to do that. And so they went out and they said, okay, we're going to do something called, they came up with this national security plan. And from that national security plan, you have Plan Secure Jamaica. And it's been in effect since 2016. And people keep asking for a crime plan. There, if you're listening for the words crime plan, you will not hear those words. You will hear Plan Secure Jamaica, which is a national security plan. So just listen carefully, people, because the Prime Minister said it several times. Now, they promised that they're going to legislate, pass legislation for firearms, bail, proceeds of crime act. And they came out with a vengeance against crime. Ask yourself the question, where are we now? And Rupert made a strong case that we're nowhere near where we should be, despite the fact that they've spent a tremendous amount of money, or they said they've spent a tremendous amount of money, despite the fact of legislation, despite the fact that they have access to international help, despite the fact that they said we have community policing, which you can't do policing without community policing because you need a source base, but they don't have one. So with all of these things that they're fighting crime, they're losing the battle. If you look at the border control of Jamaica, Jamaica has, what is it? And these are statistics coming from the government. So you know they're going to be in the light best favorable to the government. They claim that there are 145 illegal points of entry. Think about that. 4,400 square miles, and you have 145 illegal points of entry that you have identified. And then the question is, what are you doing about that? Nothing. I heard a story from a reputable gentleman in Jamaica who told me that he was on the beach one Sunday and he saw weapons being shipped in a private, well, not a private beach, but not one of the points of entry. He was just the legal points of entry. He was there with his family and he saw boats coming in and they're offloading weapons from Haiti. That's the direction they were coming from. They have 497 miles of unmonitored coastline. I mean, think about that. 145 illegal points of entry, 497 miles of unmonitored coastline. Yet, they have somebody assigned to Southcom in Florida, and that person is supposed to have access to satellites so that they can monitor the waterways of Jamaica. And yet we hear stories about boats coming in from Haiti to Jamaica with guns, and nothing's been done about that. How can you have satellite coverage and say, well, we have 497 miles of unmonitored coastline? If you have satellites, you monitor the entire island. So that's a failure. Then they have the state of emergency, the unconstitutional state of emergency, because under the Jamaican Constitution, you can only have a state of emergency in 3 instances. 1, natural disaster. 2, insurrection. That's action taken against the government. And 3 is natural disaster, insurrection. What the third one again? Help me out, Patrick. The third one just slipped me.
What is it? War?
War, right. Oh, and at the top of war, you see what's going on in Haiti, right? So when we send people over there and they come back in body bags, the government can declare war and then implement a state of emergency. And also, people keep in mind that a state of emergency can only be proclaimed by the governor general, not the prime minister, not the government. And that will take us into a separate discussion about the role and the responsibility and the powers of the governor general. But just keep in mind that no state of emergency can be initiated without the proclamation, and that's the official term, the proclamation by the governor general. So we talk about socioeconomic problems. We need to talk about corruption. And when you talk about corruption, we need to talk about the Integrity Commission and their role and their responsibility and their failures. And if you want to see one example of their failures, just look to see what happened with the former speaker, Marissa Dalrymple Philibert. We haven't heard anything about her prosecution. Nothing whatsoever. Now we hear about the 6. And I submit to you that what they're feeding to us is a false narrative. They're telling us that there is a gag order, and once you have a gag order can only be removed once the report has been tabled in Parliament. That's a lie. That's a lie. People, you need to go back and read the Integrity Commission Act. It says that as long as there's an investigation, you cannot talk about it. That's the gag order. But once the gag order is over, you can talk about it. Well, I mean, once the investigation is over, and now guess what? That report that's sitting in Parliament right now, the investigation is over. Because the way it works is that the Director of Investigations, he's responsible for making sure the investigation is initiated and completed. Then it goes to the commission with a recommendation to prosecute or not. And then the corruption prosecutor, she gets involved. Keep in mind, this is all the same agency. It doesn't have to go outside. Same agency. The investigation is submitted to the commission. Commission then submits it to the prosecutor. Prosecutor says, yes, I will prosecute. And then that is bundled up in a report and sent over to Parliament for tabling. And tabling is just a procedure. It's just transmission of the documents over there. It has nothing to do with the prosecutor bringing her case now. So the 6 people that have not 6 people that are being investigated, 6 people that have been investigated, the investigation is over. There's nothing, no more investigation to be conducted. Those 6 people, the prosecutor can come out now and talk about it and bring her case under the law. But we don't see that happening. And one of the things that I'm finding out as I go along is that people we generally don't read anymore. We get our information from social media and we'll watch the news. We don't read. And what do I mean by that? If people just take the time and go read the Firearms Act, the Bail Act, the Integrity Commission Act, the Constitution, they'd find a tremendous amount of material there worthy of review. But we don't do that. So that job is left to people like me and Patrick and John and Les and Go. We are responsible. We are the guardians of the dissemination of information to our people. Because by and large, our people are not reading. But when you read like I do, and you find all of these, you go read the Plan Secure Jamaica, read the National Security Plan, read Operation Relentless. That's another one they came up with, Operation Relentless, which they said, the JCF said, this is to target gangs and guns. And he said, well, where are the results? We don't see it. Leadership. When was the last time you heard from the police commissioner? When was the last time you heard from the Minister of National Security? When? They're our leaders. They're supposed to keep us informed, and they're supposed to provide protection and safety for us. They're doing none of those things. Look at what they did with Chairman Rowan James, the Police Federation. The man is out there fighting for his group of people. And by the way, he represents, I think it's 93 or 96% of the JCF. And what did they do? Because he spoke out about the fact that the court gave them 1 year to implement an overtime system, a digitized overtime system, because they were using a manual overtime system, and it was just cumbersome and outdated. And then they went to court, and the court gave them until March 31st of this year to implement a digitized overtime system. And the Ministry of Finance allocated the funds. Where did the money go? To this day, right now as we speak, people are not getting paid their overtime pay on time. They're not. And because the man spoke out, and he was forced to speak out strongly. He was forced because he sat there and nothing was being done. And his membership, they're saying, what's going on? You represent us, what's going on? And so he was forced. I'm sure he didn't get up on there and say, I'm going to start holding them to task. He was hoping that he didn't have to do that, but he had to. And when he did, what did they do? They sent him home. And then they're now using people within the organization to essentially remove him from leadership position. I've spoken to him on several occasions, and I can tell you this. I know law enforcement fighters when I see them, and I can tell you that this man is certainly one of them. He should be sitting up at Old Hope Road Police Headquarters, if not at the police commissioner, at the very least at the level where he's an advisor. So I'm just going on and on and on because there's so much to go on about fighting crime in Jamaica. There is no fighting crime in Jamaica. Yesterday on my program, I had a police woman who called in. And if any of you listen to that call, frightening, depressing, if you listen to that call. In fact, I'm going to call her.
I heard her.
You heard her, right?
Yeah.
She's given up hope. She's given up hope. No, if she is on the front line protecting, securing the Jamaican people, and she's given up hope, what about the people that she's there to protect? Then they come up with this nonsense. We are going to send people to Haiti. And we're not sending them there for good governance, regional stability, rule of law, democracy. No, we're sending them, quote, for gang busting, end of quote. That's why we're sending them there. We can't fight the 100 and how much gangs? 145, I forget how many, more than 100 gangs in Jamaica. We can't fight them. But we're now planning to send our people to go to Haiti to fight a force in a country that they don't know, they're not familiar with the terrain. They don't speak the language. They don't understand the culture. And the force that they're up against are well-trained and well-armed ex-soldiers in great numbers. When we send them, we should send along the body bag with them. And as my good friend Will Lonesome said, and I'm sure he's going to say it tonight again, that when these people are when these people are being sent over to Haiti, the men, they should just go find a nice stepfather for their children, because they're not coming back. They should prepare not to come back. They should prepare not to come back. And why are we doing this? And it's very clear. The Minister Kamina Johnson, she said it. She said we're waiting on monies. We're getting money from third parties to send our people over there. The US government is putting up $200 million. France is putting up money. Canada is putting up money. The interesting thing is that they're not sending their people. So we look at the money and we say, hey, we can make a money off of this if we send our people. And we can be seen as vanguards of whatever in the Caribbean. Nonsense. If you want to be seen as vanguards in the Caribbean, send CARICOM. Where's the CARICOM force? We don't have a CARICOM force going. We have a few countries and Jamaica. No, The country that is supposed to be leading this contingent is Kenya, halfway around the world, East Africa. What happened in the last 2 weeks, last week or so? The Kenyan government was sued based on constitutional principles and the fact that they can't even protect the people in Kenya regarding the scourge of crime. And they're going to send people to go gangbust halfway around the world. And a court heard the matter, and I think they've set a hearing date for the 24th of this month. Now, the Kenyan cabinet signed off on it, and they're waiting for the parliament to concur. But nothing's going to happen until this court rules on the matter. Now, let's say that the court said, no, we're not sending anyone. Who's going to lead the contingent? Jamaica with 200 people? Who's going to lead? The government of Jamaica might look at it and say it's a bigger pot of money to spend for fewer people. So maybe we should go, we can get some money, you know? Because that's how they think. That's how they think. They think transactionally. They think like, I'll give you this and you give me that. And people of Jamaica, the voters, and I'm encouraging people to get enumerated. The voters of Jamaica, you need to go out and vote your conscience. You cannot say, well, you know, none of the party them not go down Minaga. No, that's the hand you've been dealt. You have to play that hand. Not voting, not voicing your opinion, that's giving up. And so when you give up, you shouldn't complain when things don't happen. When you don't get roads, when you don't get jobs, when you don't get proper medical care, when you don't have good education, when you don't have a good when you don't have a quality standard of living, you shouldn't complain because you have not participated. In fact, you have participated in your own demise. So this crime thing is more than just, you know, one person. It's more than just one agency. It's the entire government. They tell you, they use this phrase and they copied it from the Americans. And I know because I used to use it. We used to use it. Whole of government. WHOLE of government. And what that means is that everybody contribute to the crime fighting initiative. Now you tell me in Jamaica, where do you see that whole of government initiative being incorporated or being initiated? Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. I sat down with the Prime Minister for 3 hours. And in the 3 hours, I realized that this man has no vision for Jamaica as far as crime fighting is concerned. He is a crime fighting dunce. He doesn't understand crime fighting. Yet, he's the one representing the crime fighting organizations in Jamaica. He was the one who came last December, along with the 91% disapproval police commissioner. They came to Washington to talk about guns, and they came with much fanfare. We're coming and we're going to go talk to the Americans. We're going to give them names, and they have dons in America. We're going to arrest people. And we're going to ask him, just ask him, how many people have been arrested as a result of your travel to the United States and your discussion with law enforcement in the United States? Ask him. You don't hear anything from them. And the thing is, we sit back and we just allow these things to happen. And we don't ask the questions, and we just accept incompetence. So who's to blame? We can point all we want and say this is failing, that is failing, that. But the real question is, what are we doing about the failures that we've identified? And as far as I'm seeing right now, the answer is not much. Look at what civil society is doing. Not much. Look at what the business society is doing. Not much. Look at what the churches are doing. Not much. Look at what the communities are doing. Not much. Not much, not much, not much, not much. So how do we expect much from the government? How should we expect much from the government? We are participating in our own demise, so we shouldn't complain. And the thing is, every single time I come inside of this room here, and I see the picture behind me, that arouses my passion. That's why I'm here, to arouse the sensibilities in people so that they can understand that we are the ones suffering. We are the ones giving these parliamentarians a job. They give us $5,000. They give me $5,000 and a two-piece chicken and a T-shirt. One time over a period of 5 years. and I give them a job where they make millions, and they're supposed to take care of me. And then you look at the situation and you realize that my situation is not any better. I just look at that transaction. Look at how unfair that transaction is. I give you a job for 5 years, up to 5 years, where you're gonna make, I don't know what the with the 200% raise, what it is now. I don't know, 10 million, whatever, parliamentarian. And you give me 5,000 one time, and I give you a job for millions annually for the next 5 years. Makes no sense. In fact, I heard a story that a constituent member went to his MP and started asking for things, saying, well, we need a road. And the MP said, wait a minute, hold on a second. I don't know why you're coming and asking me for anything, because I paid you already. I gave you your chicken and your 2-piece chicken and the $5,000 and the t-shirt. So what more you want from me? And even though most of them might not say it, or none of them will say it, that's how they think. That's how they think.
But it's a matter of motive.
Yeah, and Patrick, we just sit back and we just accept it, and we talk a little bit. And look, the 6, I'll tell you how dysfunctional civil society is in Jamaica. The 6 parliamentarians that we haven't heard about. Let me tell you what's going to happen with that. There are about 35, I heard, civil servants involved in that as well, that have been investigated and recommended for prosecution. They've given us 1 so far. Speaker Dalrymple, when she left, right, the Prime Minister's wife took over. The opposition went to her and said, we'd like you to table the report so we can see the names. She said, look, I just got the job. And this was 2 weeks ago. And she said, give me till next week, Tuesday, and then we'll sort it out. Tuesday came and went, nothing happened. Last week, Wednesday, the president of the Senate, Senator Tom Tavares Finson, said he was going to table the report. Wednesday, this past Wednesday, it didn't happen. But we got one person. One person's name was released, the gentleman from the Water Commission, and his involvement or alleged involvement in corruption, right? Here's what's going to happen. They're going to trot them out one by one, and we're going to follow those shiny objects like never before. We're going to follow them. We're not going to pay attention to the 6. In the meantime, the DPP, that unconstitutional DPP that's there, the plan is for her to decline prosecution of the 6 under the cover of darkness. Nobody will ever know about it. They're going to keep trotting out the 35. Then we'll get to election, and then somebody's going to wake up one day and say, hey, what happened to the 6? And then we're going to hear, the DPP declined prosecution. And then we say, we have to go after the DPP. Too late, the DPP finish her 2 years and stuff.
The way says Rattigan fault. He talk about the 9-day wonder.
See? And so here's real action I'm talking about. Somebody sent me a message last week and said, Mr. Rattigan, we haven't heard anything about the 6. Can you give us some ideas? What are your ideas? And I said, look, here's what we should do. We need to file an injunction to stop the government from doing what it's doing. Then we need to file a writ of mandamus, forcing the government to do what it's supposed to do. Then you need to go, the Public Order Act, you need to abide by that. Go get your permits and protest. We don't want people getting their heads knocked in for illegal protests. We're not into illegalities. Apply for your permits, island-wide, right? Then we in the diaspora, here's what we plan to do. We plan to take a trip down to Washington, D.C. because there's a department called the State Department, and them run Jamaica. And we want to go to the person responsible for the Jamaica desk and voice our objection. Also, there's a group in Congress called the Congressional Black Caucus. Very powerful. You bring this to their attention saying, look, Jamaica is there talking about it's the beacon of democracy in the Caribbean, but look at what they're doing. in terms of transparency, rule of law, and all these things.
And we can carry beyond that too. We can also take it to the United Nations.
That's it. That's the last. That's the one I was just going to mention.
Yeah.
We can take it to the UN. But these are the things that we need to do. These are the things that we need to do. Who's doing them? Nobody. Well, I can tell you today that as I sit here, I will lead that movement to do something about it. And we are. And that's why I tell people, support the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation. Go there now and make your donation. Because without money, we just have ideas. To implement the ideas, we need funding. And that's what the plan is. So, need to, I don't know if we should have stopped now or what, because I think I take up the spotlight a long time. But
I have a question.
It's just one thing I would take issue with from where you say Ratty.
Yeah.
Because every time when you mention about government and leading us, it just make me cringe. Because they're not leaders. I keep saying that. I've said that every week. They're not leaders. They've never been leaders and they'll never be leaders. Right? Leaders account to the ones they lead. Right? Leaders account for where they're leading you. Leaders lead. They have never done any of those things. They don't display any quality of leadership.
Well, you know what? Just I agree with you to some degree that maybe we should say so-called leaders because they present themselves as leaders.
They're rulers.
And we said they're in fact, I can tell you that there's one minister, not only an MP, a minister who was in a negotiation early this year. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Last year, I think it was. And he said in an open forum, he said, I was elected to rule, not lead. I was elected to rule. And the minister, he's probably watching now. He knows who he knows.
That's why they rule like the colonialists. That's why they rule like the colonialists. And that is the thing I keep saying. We got to stop fooling ourselves in terms of what we're dealing with.
I have a question, Jake.
But Patrick, how do you energize the people? How do you educate the people to the point where they can now decide who the leaders are? How do you do that? Instead of leaders being forced on them, how do you energize them to say, no, this person is our leader? How do you do that?
Here's the thing, right? And I wanna kind of piggyback on some points where Rupi bring out, right? Because it is so crucial. Rupi mentioned about youngsters leaving school every year, graduate from school and all of that, with nothing to do. What can we expect? What is to be expected? A new round of scammers, right? A new round of a criminal element. You know, there's no direction, right? Because again, it's not about leadership, right? So they have no direction. They have nothing to tell us. Nowhere to nothing to show. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Right? In terms of the family, Rupi mentioned again in terms of 40% of the households, right, being led by women and so on, right? And I bet, you know, Rupi could have even gone further and say in terms of what section of the society that is, and the 40% is probably speaking more towards the upper side and not the lower side, right? Because in the lower side it might be even worse. Because the fact of the matter is that people have absolutely nothing to go on. Like you said, they have no vision, right? They have no direction whatsoever, right? And they have a government that is not accountable, right? To anyone. Absolutely no one.
Let me get an example, Patrick. Let me just give everybody an example, right? When I was in charge of the FBI office in South Africa, I met this man. Right. Outstanding. He knows his stuff inside out. We remain friends over the years. Every time I go to South Africa, I make sure I seek him out. We have dinner, we have lunch for them, and we just talk about a whole bunch of issues. Now, he's now in charge of the South African version of the FBI. They have vast experience dealing with things that Beryllium is facing right now. They have vast experience dealing with homicide investigation, bank robberies, the whole thing. The man was in Jamaica. He went there for the International Drug Enforcement Conference a couple weeks ago. And I made it known that he was there. I called him and I said, listen, I need you to help my country. When you go there at this conference, the Prime Minister is likely to be there. The Minister of National Security is likely to be there. The Police Commissioner is likely to be there. I want you to engage with them, right? I'm going to reach out and I want you to engage with them and just, if possible, establish a bilateral with them where you can second people from your country to their country and so on and so forth, right? He said, for you, I'll do it, not a problem. The man was there for 3 days. Nobody reached out to him. Nobody. He went back to South Africa. I called him. Did anybody reach out to you, General? No, nobody. A few days after, an MP reached out to me and said, listen, I want to talk to this guy. We want to talk to him, right? And I said, but the man was there. The man was there. And he said, you know, is it possible for you to get us his details? I said, yes. So I called him. I said, General, listen, they reached out. They want to talk to you. They want to blah, blah, blah. He said, fine. Well, he said, whatever they want me to do, I'll do. I'll sit with them. And so I gave them his details. I don't think they called him. No, guess what happened? Jeffrey Tavares, our good friend, he's having a conference next week. I think it's next week, Sunday. A conference between South Africa and Jamaica. And he's having all of these people at the conference. No, why couldn't the government? Why couldn't government do that? Jeffrey, look, this just gets me really, really upset. He's having a real conference next week to talk about solutions in both countries, and he's not a government official. And he's managed to get all of these people together on one platform. Leadership, Patrick, or the lack thereof, as you would say. That's what I'm talking about.
Is it just leadership or the lack thereof? And I ask that question because over the years, I always have a problem with the police going around and labeling youths as belonging to gangs. The labeling thing is something that the state rely on for a number of years now. Don't you think this is a problem? A much bigger problem? Because much of the youth that they are saying belong to gangs, are they really in gang or is just corner?
But Rupi
just get together.
Rupi just said it. Rupi just said it, right? Because basically, right, if you're looking at the country as a whole, right, and its people, and you're looking at you're looking at the aspect of the youngsters going through school, leaving school with nothing to do, right? Nowhere to go, no direction, right? No anything, right? Nothing to facilitate them making something of their livelihood, right?
But
Basically, what you're talking about is you're talking about criminalizing your youths. That's basically what you're talking about. That is precisely what you're talking about. When you talk about breaking down the family, you're talking about criminalizing the youngsters. Because most of what happened, you know, it's not for us. It's for the younger ones. Whenever you look at society, for the most part, what you look at is young people. That's what you look at for the most part. Right? The older ones are transitioning out. Right? The younger ones and the upcoming ones are the main ones you're looking at. That's a bulk of society.
Yeah, but the question I'm asking is whether or not the police approach to crime solving is undermined by the approach of identifying youths who stand on the corner as belonging to gang members. How do they go about to identify these youths as belonging to gang? What are the criteria they use?
But again, there's no criteria. Ratty just said it. We have a police force which have nothing to offer in terms of substance of addressing crime and all of that. That is saying that they have nothing to offer, period. Mm-hmm. Nothing. That's what Ratty just talk about for how long. That's summing it all up. Right?
Let us hear from John. Let us hear from John, you know. John,
Yes,
what
man,
is
I'm
your
right
take?
here. My brain is hot.
What is your
Yes,
take on
what's the
this?
question?
Can you sit up so we can see your face fully, my brother?
Yeah, man, my face is right here on the screen here. What do you mean?
I will see him
You have
head
to
and everything.
bring up
I
my
just head with us. All right, see that?
hand.
Yeah, man. Yeah, John. What is your take? Because the argument so far, you know, Rupi is saying that you have to adjust the socio-economic condition, which I'm in total
Yeah,
agreement.
yeah,
Rattigan is
but
saying that there's no leadership. The problem is leadership and lack of plan.
yeah, this is a big problem for the country. And I remember when I left Jamaica to go and work in the Bahamas. I mean, the numbers in this article you refer to, which I have a copy of, is astounding, right? We
Yeah,
have been ranking low on the crime chart for more than 20 years. And all this talk about illegal points of entry, we're talking about drugs.
And
All
guns.
this
And
point about
guns.
unmonitored coastline. I remember in Bahamas, they depend 100% on the US radar system. They could, somebody, because it's an island and many little inlets, because I think it's a 200 island, of which only a small number are inhabited. By monitoring the waterway, fast boat or whatever boat them use to come to the country as a transmission port, because the ultimate goal is to get to the US. I'm not sure if that's the case in Jamaica. I think we have a fairly developed internal system here. And I don't see no discussion, I don't see no answer except a one or two practical steps that we can take now. But this is one of the areas where I would definitely like to see what the feedback is from the community to some of the issues. The Plan Secure Jamaica, the Operation Relentless, is that those are two you mentioned, and the transparency report is not yet public, but the question is what can we do to make change, to initiate, to contribute, and clearly we have I would say people are not, this is not something that is going to change unless people become active. The community becomes active for any big change to take place. We don't have a situation where the head of the police force is elected. So I'm really trying to put my thinking cap on, and the measures that he suggested, Rattigan, I don't have a problem with them. I think they are measures that we can implement at the moment, but I don't know to what extent they would involve ordinary working people, and that's where my head is at. How to get ordinary working people to be more involved in the issue of crime, in the issue of solving crime. What we are seeing is incompetence. You know, we could list all of these problems: leadership, accountability, corruption. I mean, the list is endless. This is perhaps the most burning issue facing the country. it is also, to me, a big factor that contribute to the large number of people leaving the country to go abroad. I believe it's one of the biggest factors. So I don't have a solution where I can point and say this, do this, or let's do that. I am directed to think that we need to consider an initiative or initiatives that help to galvanize public support in one way or the other, however limited at this stage. But that is the direction that I think we need to consider. The other point I wanted to ask is what's going on with the soldiers, because Jamaica is not just the police force. What's going on with the JDF? To what extent, if any, are they involved in the crime issue, in this problem? I mean, you didn't really mention anything about them. I'm just curious to know what's going on where that is concerned. Did you hear me, or am I on silent?
No,
We
I
hear
hear
you,
you.
man. We hear you.
Let me just say that somebody's
Yeah,
asking.
yeah, man, I hear you.
Yeah, somebody's asking the suspension of elections for arbitrary reasons. How do we fix that? Vote. Yes, indeed, we have to vote. We have to vote. But let me just add something else to the idea that we have a homicide, an accurate homicide tally. We don't, because here are three things that they have hidden from the public, for a long time. And I just found out, and I'm now pressing them to give me answers. There's a thing called murder investigation. Those numbers don't get added to the homicide rate. They don't. And what it is where they said, okay, somebody got shot, but we're conducting an investigation. And I'm being told that there are lots of people, lots of dead bodies that are not counted, that are in this category. Murder, remember that, people, murder investigation, where the JCF says we're conducting it. The second one is autopsy, where the coroner says, okay, here's the cause of death, right? Lots of people have been murdered and they haven't been officially declared murdered because we don't have enough coroners in Jamaica to go around. I've heard about bodies being just piling up. And to the point where some of them, they're not even examined. They just say, look, the body has deteriorated so badly and we don't have the space, so we just bury the person. And there's no cause of death. And the third one is missing persons. In Jamaica, if you're missing for 7 years, your family can go to court and have you declared dead. We don't get any reports about missing persons. So now, I've asked the government, give me those numbers. And they're buck shuffling right now. I guess people have never asked them for those numbers before. And they know why I'm asking.
But here's the thing. Here's the ingredient to all of that, Ratty, which I mean, even though it's covered in what you said, but some things, if it's not mentioned, right, then it's seeming insignificant. When you look at the whole matter of corruption, for example, right, and you're looking at corrupt government, right, it filters down in terms of corruption and inefficiency, even amongst the statisticians, even amongst the civil servants, even amongst the rank and file police officers, all of that. When you don't have a direction and all of that, and I mean, think about it, right? If you're going to work for a person who really it doesn't matter to them, right, in terms of how you work, right? It means that you basically can do whatever you feel like doing, right, or handle the work however, right, because there's no accountability either. So it filters down, right? And that's why you find that there's that whole disorientation, this whole, disarray that takes place across the board.
One of the, one of the things I want to speak to
Yes.
that Rupi mentioned, Rupi rightly mentioned that the root of the criminality in the country is socio-economic, right?
Right.
But what we also have to recognize is that crime in Jamaica has developed to a situation where it's practically, some aspects of the crime is practically existing on its own. It has nothing anymore to do with the socio-economic conditions of the people involved. It's like crime, it's generating its own criminality. And this is because the country has allowed crime to get out of hand so much that there are areas of crime that has become so developed. The people involved are making substantial amount of money, right? They're not in need, but this crime is generating its own life and attracting new people independent of the socio-economic situations, right? As you rightly say, Rupi, a lot of the people involved in the criminality is not even living downtown, right? A lot of the people into the smuggling and whatever of guns and drugs, they are upper class people, right? Which the socio-economic conditions is not driving their involvement in crime, right? But that criminality is attracting those people who coming out of college, coming out of high school, who can't get jobs. It is influencing those people, right? To get involved in something to generate some funds, right? And sometimes it's not necessarily those people individual economics condition that is putting them in the situation where they have to go in crime. It's just that we don't have crime under control. We don't have a commissioner of police, right? We don't have a minister of national security. We don't have a prime minister who is zeroing in on solving the crime issue, in getting those people who are involved in the high level criminality, right? So it is existing on its own, it's building its own momentum and going along,
Let me just let me just let me just say just a couple quick things. One is socioeconomic problems. You're basically talking about funding programs for people, providing jobs. There is a particular characterization of funding coming to Jamaica called donor funds. Nobody's looking into that. Billions of dollars have come to Jamaica as donor funds from donor countries, agencies, and individuals. And we haven't seen an accounting of where those monies went, if they were spent appropriately. We haven't seen it.
Because there's no accounting.
There's no account, but I'm looking into it right now. I'm looking into it. I've taken that on as a project. The other thing is, when you start looking at crime, keep this in mind. Between the US, the UK, and Canada, a tremendous amount of people, deportees, are being sent back to Jamaica. They go back to Jamaica with particular crime skills that the ordinary Jamaicans, they don't know about these things. And that's why we've been asking for the establishment of something called a fusion center. In 2017, I made a presentation to them. All right. I've worked with fusion centers. I've seen them work and I've seen them fail. But out of the fusion center, you get something called emerging trends. And that is where an analyst is able to look across the horizon, see what's going on elsewhere, and make preparations to combat it should it come to the shores, or to prevent it from coming to the shores of Jamaica. They don't have that foresight. You know why? Because the JCF is a reactive body. It's not a proactive body. It was never intended to be a proactive body. It's a reactive body. And policing in the 21st century have moved, policing in the century, it has moved from proactive to being predictive. And Jamaica is nowhere near that. Nowhere near that, despite the monies that they've spent. And so what we should be looking at right now, we should be looking at establishing a fusion center. No, they have fusion centers, they have semblances of it. The military has one. CTOC, I believe, has one. Even the tourism ministry have one. They call it Tourism Resilience Center. What you need is you need one center to house all of these people, all of these agencies, and work in harmony, where you can now start setting out requirements. You can now start processing information. You can now start analyzing, disseminating, all that stuff. But they just simply refuse because Jamaicans are a very, very proud set of people, and there's nothing wrong with being proud, but don't be proud to a fault. And when you bring an idea to them, they say, "Oh, man, we know about them things, man." I told them about man in the middle. There's a white collar scheme called man in the middle that an analyst that worked for me, she identified it. She identified it for the FBI, right? And I told them about it.
Yeah, that's a cyber
yeah.
cyber tactic. Yeah.
Yeah, the person who developed that, who identified that, she used to work with me, and I gave it to her as a project. And then when we'll come back to Jamaica and say, listen, you guys should be thinking about doing this. But we invited the financial sector. Them say, no, man, we know all about them things. What they won't tell you is how much money the banks are losing. Thank God that they're making a profit, because they're losing money like it's going out of style. But they can't come out and say it. And in fact, they won't even have the police coming in and investigate, because that would erode public confidence in the banks and people would start taking their money out. It's a shame.
Rupe, you want to respond to what you heard so far?
Yeah. I'm in agreement with Pratica. I think to a great extent we continue with the whole full style policing. And remember, my opening thing is to just remind us the history of the force, and in terms of commencement, and what was its objective, what was its purpose, right? In our way, our police force in a modern time like now continue to be hard in terms of its policy, hard policing. They, catching some man and beat them and lock them up and
them still a look for slave to catch them. Them still a look for slave. That's what them doing.
Still a look for what?
Still a look for slave. That's what them was designed for in the beginning.
Precisely. From the commencement. This is the point I'm making.
Yeah.
So
them still not a more there.
Yeah, I think Ratigan's point is very important from the point of view of the question of the modernization and the using of technology and bringing in some of the bright minds and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot leave to be desired as it relating to that type of an approach. The other thing too is the macro as it relating to community policing. Community policing is one of the main pillars. And all of us on this platform would agree that one of the main way in which crime are going to reduce in this country is via community policing. But here, what is the problem with our community policing? The extent of the corruption of the police themselves, it don't allow citizens to freely volunteer information and so on and so forth. Because the police themselves, 9 out of 10 times, will carry back information to the criminal because they are in the criminal pocket and so on and so forth. The other thing is that the extent and the level of crime in the country and how easily a man can shot you and kill you and get away. It drives tremendous fear into the citizenry mind. So even when you want to say, well, basically, try and see how you can help with some information and so, people have the tendency to pull back because of 2 reasons. Don't trust the police, and then figure that too much people is being killed in the country, and the criminal them is not being brought to justice. So that's another aspect. But I want to come to a point that you raised earlier, Mikey, in relationship to the question of gangs. And if basically we're just picking up arbitrary, just picking up youth off a corner and say them belongs to gang. All right, in 2013, it was reported that the country have roughly about 250 gangs. I think that has risen in possibly the 10 years up to recent point to about roughly about 300 gangs, it is said, across the country. Now you know that them categorize them. But it is true that you can have a set of dons in a Waterhouse. Because I use Waterhouse for example. And you have some ordinary youth that not necessarily is an integral part of carrying out action and benefiting from whatever is happening financially. But the fact that they might very well know Tom and Dick in the gang and so on, sometimes they are just being scraped up as an integral part of the gang. So this,
I'm just hungry.
This is another problem with the country. If you notice that the legislators, every week, them can come out with a new law. Right? And part of the thing is to try to legislate law, and 9 out of 10 time is more draconian law in an attempt to try and see if them can use that to curb crime and violence. I'm not saying that is not necessary, but look, man, I think to a great extent we have gone beyond just passing laws. Some of these laws very important to try and see how you can use them to curb certain things and so on. Some of them is decadent and need to be really put aside, and you institute new laws and so on and so forth. But we have a serious problem. Again, Rattigan make the point in terms of general governance of the country in general. And I think Patrick constantly harp it and beat it. But in particular, the governance of crime in the country. And I mean, in a nutshell, the people who constitute the government are the persons who constitute the government don't have a clue of what they're doing. And they constantly over and over use the same strategy, even when it don't work for the last 8-10 years, to basically try and see if the same old wine is going to solve the problem. You know, that is my response.
Which is why them abandon the job and continue flying them pockets, because it drives corruption. It moves in the other direction, right? Instead of moving in a direction for improvement, it moves in a direction for further corruption.
I think part of the problem, Rupi.
Just one more point. I think Ratigan make a very significant point. That there's a tendency amongst the government representative to suppress and to basically hide the quantity, so to speak, of murders and other major crime. That if you notice how them always a fight like them fight for something or reduce, particularly murder. Them fight hard and just like how I report on this thing which indicate that the 30th of September last year we have 1,179, and that the 30th of September this year we have 1,038, which is really a minus almost about 14 or something difference in terms of. But these things are so significant to them. Them basically all it as something in terms of hell of an improvement. Yeah, they're Jamaican knows that that is bullshit. Sorry for the language on your platform, my friend. You know?
Call it real.
Well,
Call it
we
genuine.
have been-
Call it Rupi.
We have been having that concern for a while, Rupi, that the more we see the murders on the ground increasing, right, day by day, the statistics that we get from the JCF don't seem to be saying the same thing. And I have been wondering, are there any independent organizations in Jamaica who monitor the murder rate in the country? Is there any media house? Is there, that do any form of monitoring? Because what's happening now that is significant is that instead of 1 and 2 people dying now, we see the recent trend where it's 4 and 5 and 3 and 2 almost every day. So we will be watching how the statistics go, right? If it goes with the current trend, or they will come again to say that same time last year, same period last year, there has been a decline. It's astonishing to me, right? But the point I had wanted to raise earlier, Rupi, was that you made a point about the government, and the police. They're doing the same things over and over and expecting, some new results. I am thinking that when it comes to crime and corruption and all these things in the country, probably these guys are doing the same thing over and over, not because they're not aware that it's not working, but a lot of them, both police and government officials, are so much involved in the criminality that they don't really want to put their fingers where the thing should be. Because if they really put their fingers on the spot where the direction where they should go, so much of them would be caught in the net. So they prefer to be passing these legislations about bail, passing these legislations about detention, right? And not trying to come up with solutions to fight the everyday criminality and corruption.
Okay, I think we can conclude on that note. Yes, same old methods, same results. I want to point the brothers to an article in this Sunday Gleaner by Andre Orton, who is arguing for greater use of technology in the crime fighting effort of the government. And he point to one instant, the shot checker software, where if a shot is fired, they can pick it up. He's asking for that and some other technology. Ratigan, you know about this?
Listen, that technology is old. That
It's
technology is
old.
old.
I saw it on BBC. It's
It's
old.
old. But the company that developed that technology. They use a police department out in New York as a guinea pig for that.
Yeah.
I used to work with that police department. I used to assign people to that police department. An intelligence center. I've seen it work, and I brought that man to Jamaica. Brought him to Jamaica and said, Jamaica, here it is. I was even gonna get them free shot spotters.
Yeah,
And the
shot
people,
spotter. Yeah.
shot spotters, them just say, no, we know about them thing there, you know. And I tell you what, I spoke to I spoke to even with him. There's another one. There's another one that they have. That as you drive past, it pick up the license plate. It picks up the license
Yeah.
plate. License plate readers, LPRs, right? I talked to the Prime Minister. You know what he was telling me? They're putting LPRs on traffic signals. I said to him, no, that's not how you put the traffic. That's not how you do it. I brought this guy to show them how to use LPRs. And them said, no, we know about them things. We have them down there, man. Everything good. So all of this technology you're talking about, LPRs, shot spotters, they're old. The shot spotter is one where you put it on like buildings or
It's very effective here in Boston.
Yeah, and it picks up. Yeah, once the shots go off, it records and sends it off to us to a command center, and they can tell you the caliber, they can tell you the sequence, and they can tell you where. And what happened? It's linked to a computer in the radio cars, and the cars. And here's how this guy did it with the cars.
Yep.
They would know about it before somebody could call in. Before somebody could call 911, because it would be picked up, sent to the command post, and it was sent to all of the cars with the computers. And what would happen is that as they're driving, as a policeman is driving to that thing, his screen would show the topography, it would show the area, what it's like, you know, what's next to this house, is there a building there, is there an alleyway, blah blah blah. Then it would also show all the people in that area who have been charged with gun crimes who have been released recently. Then it would also show all of the informants that they have in that area. So I mean, it's just a ton of technology there on how they operate.
But here's the thing again. Here's the thing again, and that's why I say, you know, we have to stop talking about the same thing over and over, because all the way you mentioned, what it requires, it don't require a corrupt government to implement things like that. You only see why they wouldn't implement things like that. They're not interested in none of these things, right?
Look,
because these things are not what motivate them. What motivate them is to line them pocket, right? What motivate them is the corruption.
Patrick, here's how they get involved in something like that. When them friend can get the contract to bring it in. And so the kickback, that's where the kickback comes in.
Yeah, but they're still not gonna implement it the way it is supposed to be implemented.
Look, I have a document here called from the Ministry of National Security called A New Era of Policing in Jamaica, Transforming the JCF. It talks about all of these things. I have something here called the Consensus on Crime, where it gives you benchmarks and give you benchmarks and tell you what must be done when it must be done. And they failed. They haven't done. They set their own benchmarks and they fail. They set their own benchmarks and they fail at the benchmark. And here's one of the reasons why they fail. In 2020, in anticipation of the election, they came up with this thing called Consensus on Crime, and it was an initiative supported by people of faith, business people, civil society, everybody, politicians, and it had benchmarks, it had things that you had to do by a certain time period. The gentleman who was spearheading it, Lloyd Distant, I think he's with one of the financial houses in Jamaica. He was interviewed in New York. The person who interviewed him, I said to him, brethren, here what you do. Go back, go interview him a year from now and ask him if they meet the benchmarks, because you're going to find out the answer is no, right? Right. And so they have this thing. Now, part of it was that they were supposed to have regularly scheduled meetings. You know who was supposed to chair the meetings? The Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chan. And you know what happened? He did not attend those meetings. And when he was asked about it, you know what he said? Oh, I thought it was just for the election, so that there wouldn't be any violence, that we could contain the violence. I didn't know it was something that we had to continue doing and whatnot. No, this is the man who in 2010 the WikiLeaks cable coming out of Jamaica said that this is a man who was involved in criminal activity or with criminal actors in St. James. This is the same man.
Mm-hmm.
Same man. And you take that man and you make him your Minister of National Security and your Deputy Prime Minister? Come on, man.
And it's the same man who questionable in terms of constituency and him connection to crime and violence.
And it's the same man when the diaspora, when he had a town hall meeting with the diaspora, and the diaspora said, we would like to come and help Jamaica with our crime fighting experience and knowledge and know-how and contacts and whatnot. Him said, we don't need any here. If we don't want to come and give a one speech, then we'll approve that. Otherwise, just send the money. We don't need you. We don't need you here. It's not going to happen. We're not going to work alongside you. He said that.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. Well, we have gone over 2 hours and 41 minutes. And
That's right.
it's a long time we've been batting at the wicket. But we cannot go without remembering Ibo Cooper. Jamaica lost a very talented musician, and I hope while government is celebrating National Heroes Day, there's some celebration for Ibo Cooper. Ibo is a very wonderful person. I happen to know this brethren through others, and I've dealt with him sometime. In fact, some time ago, he and I and some other people were thinking of taking Third World to the Soviet Union. But the problem, we just couldn't get a meeting of the minds because the Soviet wanted to give him crystal and he wanted US dollars. He wanted to pay it in US dollars. And we never pull it off. But I tell you, Ibo Cooper is a wonderful brethren, man, and we have lost a very talented person. John, you know him, right?
He was more than the talent anyway, you know, because he was also an accomplished, not just an accomplished musician, but a very good teacher too, and of tremendous value to the culture of Jamaica as well.
Yep. John, you have anything to say about Ibo? Rupi?
Not more to add.
Yes.
There's a dedication to him from the Edna Manley School, and it outlines his contribution. I posted it on my Facebook.
Rupi,
Yes.
you were saying?
Yeah, man. Definitely, brethren. I've known people like how I know you, Mikey, and most of the panelists. I've worked with the brethren at Reggae Sunsplash several years in terms of them performance. As you know, I used to operate the service entrance for Synergy. And I know him from Reggae Sunsplash, but then I am the vice president for the Jamaica Ganja Growers and Producers Association. In fact, the president for St. Catherine, and I have to deal with Ibo as it relating to the GGPAJ and some collaboration. A fine brethren. You know, a very decent, very that man when words is in band. You know, very jovial, very sociable, you know, and all of that. I mean, when I heard the news, I was so taken aback. I never even knew that man was having problem with the big C. But such is life. I think them said a certain and only road for all us is that one day we can exit. So may soul just rest in a world of power, bro.
Yes.
Gentlemen, thank you for a time well spent. We have covered a lot, and we'll do it all again next week, Sunday.
Like, share,
same
subscribe.
time, same place. Like, share, and subscribe. And I want to thank the audience, you know, because
them can join up on Lonesome Town Hall meeting.
yeah, and remember, when you're not with me, you go listen to Mr. Rattigan, reason with Rattigan. and then you can go jump over to Wayne Lonesome, you know. But it's all good. It's all good.
Well,
Brother
I
Rupert,
want
I
to
want to
say,
thank you, you know.
yeah, man, Mikey, Arati.
Yes.
I want to
Yeah.
say, you know, we got through this session without any technical issues. It's a blessing. I hope learn something got through, and I hope yours next week Saturday got through same way. You know.
Because we didn't talk about we didn't talk about
I
the
have
foreign
something
minister.
about that, you know, Ratty.
No.
But I have to
We
start
didn't
you
talk
one
about the
away.
foreign minister. But what I want to play, brethren, this is a track that I produce, and it's going to be the theme song for this platform. Here it is. Check it out and tell me what you
Think
think.
you play a Ibo Cooper music.
Tribute to Igbo.
Well,
Reggae
probably have to do that
ambassador.
next week.
Think you play reggae ambassador.
Well, brother man, this one is not coming true, but I will have something for you next week. You know,
Rupert, hope to see you
Yes,
next
it's
week.
not
John,
too soon.
John, it was playing earlier.
Yeah,
John-
I don't
John
know. I can't answer that. I don't know
Say
what
we
you
should
do.
have a music
Introducing and ending the program.
Patrick, and that's the problem for next week's start.
Let's
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
too,
yeah.
you talk too soon.
Blessings.
All right, brethren, because so
Yeah,
8 o'clock now.
All right. Cool.
Here we go.
Oh God.
Let me bring up the volume a little. Can barely hear you, man.
On Waterhouse Vibes.
Gentlemen,
We can hear a thing from your mic.
hungry like a dog.
Instrumental strictly.
Yeah, because up here is him produce it, and I'm afraid to play another man music.
Miguel, you're muted, man. You're muted. We're not hearing you.
Well, him not put no audio to it yet, man. No vocals to it yet. Him
No,
soon get
it
some
might
top.
muted. It might muted too.
Yeah. All right. Can't hear him.
I hear you, Mikey. You're muted.
Yeah. I must say that I enjoy the little reason, brethren. And you must invite me again.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Good to see you, man. Good to
Glad
see
to
you.
see you, Rupert, man. A long time. Glad to see you,
We
brother.
have to chat some more.
What for respect, brethren.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Enough years.
All right, Rupin.
Later.
Right, cool.
Yeah, man. Take care.
One love, bro.
One love.